The initial idea for our house here was that it would be a holiday home. We just wanted this place that we could go to that would be like a refuge, that would have our personal items, where we would have this place like a little hideaway from the busy life in the Netherlands. So our house needed to be at a reasonable driving distance. This is a little under 7 hours from where we lived in the Netherlands. I had gone to Burgundy about 2 or 3 times before in my life, and I remembered how much I liked it. And basically we just bought this house because we fell in love with it. It was during a visit where we weren't even sure if we wanted to get a house. We just said to each other, let's just spend a few days there and just for fun do a few viewings and then just see if this is a real dream, if we really want to make this a reality or whether we're just dreaming about this. And so we really randomly picked 3 houses, and this was one of the 3, and we saw it, we fell in love with it. I've visited almost every part of France, and I like every part of France for different reasons, but Burgundy is the only place where I truly feel home. I like the countryside in Burgundy. It's very hilly. It has all the hedges around the farm fields. There are many cows here, which gives a different scenery than crops. There is vineyards here, which I absolutely love. The weather here is a lot milder than in the south of France, which means that the summers aren't as hot and that we still get a real winter, although we hardly ever get snow. I just really feel very much at home here. I know that the people in Burgundy, what's being said here is that they're not very open, but that is not at all how I've experienced moving here. I found them to be very open. We as a family have felt very welcomed here. And yeah, we've integrated really easily. Our village is really welcoming and warm. It's small, we're only 75 people, but there's lots of young families, lots of children, and we have a lot of events throughout the year where we see everybody eating together, dancing together, partying together, doing fun things together like sports activities. We really have a very active little village. That is not the norm. I'm beginning to see with French friends that their villages aren't necessarily as close and connected and active as ours is, so we've just been very lucky. And this also answers one of your questions, whether our boys have transitioned well with the move. They were 8 and just 11 when we moved here, which meant that the oldest, who had just turned 11 like 2 weeks before, would move to the secondary school just that summer. And he would only have 2 to 3 months in school, in primary school, to learn French. I worried a lot about that, and that was, in hindsight, completely unnecessary because they just came into school the first day. I remember they came home, they spoke English already. I remember they came home saying, "Mom, none of the teachers speak English. What do I do?" So they gave them an iPad and they were on Google Translate in the first couple of weeks. But really quickly they picked up on the language. They made new friends. They had their sports activities. And yeah, I was surprised with how smooth that transition was. And I ask them sometimes now, like, would you rather go back to the Netherlands or are you happy here? And basically what they say they love about living here is that it's so much more quiet. We have more space, it's green. Yeah, all in all, we've really had a very soft landing here, which is also thanks to the school that really went out of their way to make our boys feel at home. They were offered extra French classes. I also hired a young girl that came here during the summer holidays of our first year here to give them extra French classes. And honestly, by the time like the second year that we were here, they were both among the best in their class, if not the best in their class in French, because they just really, they were just motivated to learn the language, and they I think they kind of have the talent for it as well. Some of you also asked about my language journey. I think I've shared a bit about this in my previous Q&A, but I was born in the Netherlands. Both of my parents are Dutch. Since nobody else in the world speaks Dutch, the Netherlands are very open to teaching children English. And for example, cartoons will be in Dutch, but I think maybe around any movie that's 12 years or older, like for teens, or it will be in English. You will never go to a cinema and see a originally like an American, like Forrest Gump or something movie, have Dutch speaking. This is really, and then the topic being my language journey, me trying to find my words in English. But like I know that in France and for example in Germany as well, they dub everything. So instead of putting subtitles, you will have that movie in your own language. If you go to the cinema in France, you can pick a movie, and when it's not a French movie, you can choose the version originale, so the original version, which means English in most cases, or the adapted version in French. That doesn't exist in the Netherlands. So from a young age, we were exposed to English. At a pretty young age, we started hearing English. My grandfather, I did a whole video about it. I'll link it up here. My grandfather met an American soldier in the Second World War that he got back in touch with around the time that my brother and I were like 10 and 12 or something. So we started being pen pals with our family. They came to visit. We visited them in the US. We kind of adopted each other as family. I share that story in the video. So we were very close with them. So from a very young age, we just spoke a lot of English. And then my career has been mostly in English-speaking companies as well. And then when I had to pick my studies, I initially studied human resource management, but changed after the first year and studied French just because I loved the language. I ended up working my entire career in human resource management, personal development, professional development, coaching. But I did spend 5 years in university studying the French literature and culture and language. I also did some Spanish and Italian. I understand those languages. Like for example, when we get guests from Italy or Germany, I can read all of that. I understand all of that. When you talk to me, I understand most of it, but I start to mix everything up when I try to speak Italian or Spanish or German. So I've just given up on that and stick to the 3 languages that I use every day. And somebody else also said that they had the impression that a lot of people from the Netherlands, but also other countries, are moving to France, and they wondered what the reason is. Now, I can't speak for those people and I can't say what their reasons were. I do know that, for example, the Netherlands, where I'm from, is a small country. We don't have a lot of space. If you want a house with a big garden and a nice view, that's very difficult to find even when you're a millionaire, is how I see it. Plus, what I've noticed in the Netherlands is there is no real silence. If you go to a natural park or if you go to the woods or wherever for a hike, you always hear a highway somewhere or an airport somewhere. And I'm not saying that where we live now there is no noise, but you have a lot more space and quiet places in France. And I think people who are like me, who love the countryside, who want to live a different lifestyle, who want a vegetable garden, they will tend to, move away from the Netherlands. We chose France because we've always loved France. I think everybody just has their individual reasons. I don't think things are necessarily better in France. It's not an escape like, oh, once I'll be there, everything will be perfect. No, France has its own challenges. That's also one of the questions, actually. What's the biggest challenge in your life in France? Someone said, and what do you like the most? So continuing on what I like the most is the fact that the country is very diverse. So I now travel maybe for an hour, 2, 3, 4, and I can be in a totally different world, which I love, and I do that a lot. I film houses, as you know, for this channel, so I travel a lot in the country. I also really like the culture. The French culture is complex because it's not as close to the Dutch culture as you would think initially. They have very different social norms, and the ways that you communicate with other people are different. There's a lot of channels that talk about that, so I'm not going to dive into that too much. The other thing that I really love, but it could be because I'm in the countryside, is that French people work to live. Work is not something you talk about when you're not at work, preferably. So yes, when I meet new people, depending on in which context I meet them, at some point, yes, you will discuss what you do for a living. But it's not like in the Netherlands. I was so used to that being almost the first thing people ask when you go to a birthday party where you don't know anyone. And here it doesn't have the same importance, I think. And all of that together makes this country for me a country where people just spend time to enjoy life. Life is a lot slower here, so that's also the biggest challenge. A lot of things are slower here than I was used to in the Netherlands, where everything feels efficient and fast. So you need to be able to not be frustrated about it. When you go to a customer service, when you have an issue, you're never right. The customer is never right. The responsable is always right. So you speak to a customer service agent, and they will be too afraid to promise you anything. They will have to check everything with their manager, and just know that you will never be right. The manager is right. They're afraid that they'll make a mistake and that the manager will not be happy about it. So it's just a very different thing when I think about it. You're never right. The business is always right. It's your fault, unless it's not, but usually it is. So there's a couple of things that make that a little difficult to get things done, to get things organized when you live here. But I have a couple of friends that have recently moved, and I just told them, just surrender to that. If you are able to surrender to that, France is the most wonderful country, I think, to live, because, you know, especially here in the wine region, everything's centered around wine, events year round around it. Food is always, I'm a food lover, as you know, so food is always very important. Wherever you go, it will involve food. I love it. So yeah, that's what I love most about France. And the challenge is the fact that things aren't as efficient. And also I find the tax system extremely complicated, but that's, you know, I have my accountant for that. So then about our house, some people have asked if they could see what it looked like when we bought it. That was in 2018. It was very simple. So I'm sitting in what used to be our barn. If you've been following me and Olav, I'll link Olaf's channel below, because Olav films all of our renovations. If you've been following him as well, you're able, if you go back to my older videos, you get a very good view of what this looked like. This was just a dirt floor. There was nothing here. The cook's cottage, which we now rent as a holiday home, was the stables. There were still all the stuff for the cows were still there. It was, yeah. Oh, I'm just realizing how much we've accomplished in only 5 years. The previous owners were Dutch and only lived here during the summer, so the house was not insulated. The kitchen was very simple. The bathroom was very simple. There was no heating. There was just this one wood-burning stove in the living room. We only had a tiny bedroom, and the boys were kind of sleeping in a hallway. And everything was focused around the garden. The garden was really beautiful, and that's what they spent their time on. But the house really needed a lot of love. But we didn't care at first, because we just wanted to come here to enjoy nature. So we were fine with what the house looked like. And then we spent our first holiday here in October of 2018 and just felt the peacefulness and the quiet. And we were making bonfires in the night and just feeling like how we enjoyed that kind of life. And that's when we said to each other, why are we not living here? And then decided to move here in February in 2019. And then with that move, of course, we realized if this is where we want to live and if our kids are going to grow up here, the house needs to be more comfortable. And that's when we started this huge renovation project. And someone also asked, what are you going to do when you're finished with the renovations? Well, I have to be honest, we don't really think about that. And we do a lot of things next to renovating this property. I still have my business. I do several things actually. I still do a tiny bit of coaching, not too much. I'm kind of downsizing that. We do these videos. Yes, we're renovating. Olaf spends most of his time on renovating the house, but he also has a YouTube channel. I have this YouTube channel that is actually one of my income sources. I know some people don't realize that, but it is. It doesn't allow us to live, like we can't make our living with just YouTube, but it is one of the sources and also one of the ways that I spend my time, and maybe the one that I enjoy most. I really love creating videos, sharing our life, visiting these beautiful homes that I film. So that's the thing. Then we have our rentals, of course, which are very successful because the cabin really is always booked, even in the winter. And then we have the cottage in the summer. That takes a lot of our time, cleaning, doing all the laundry, making breakfast for guests, welcoming them, making sure everything looks nice, the garden, the swimming pool. That is something we do. And then I also do interior design, which I haven't talked about a lot because I'm just starting out with that, that's a very recent thing, like a year or so that I'm doing that, but somebody specifically asked about that. So I'm not an architect, but I work with architects when needed, but I basically just do the color scheme, layouts, ideas, shopping ideas, so that you can make your house feel like a comfortable home. And then I do some brocante shopping with private clients. I basically do everything that I enjoy, which is always how I've lived my life. And the other thing is, I really learned to live in the moment and not think too much about where I'm going to be in a year from now. Or I've learned that doesn't make me feel happier. It doesn't make me feel more secure. Some people feel way more comfortable when they feel they're a little bit more in control of where their life is going. But that makes me feel unhappy because it makes me feel like I'm not focused on being here now. What I do know for Olaf, and this is also going to tie into the question where we met. Thank you for asking that question because that made me smile. So I'll answer what Olaf is planning to do or hoping to do when the biggest renovations are finished. We met in Italy where we both signed up for a jazz workshop. He was one of the piano players, and I was one of the singers. And it is so funny because we spent 2 weeks in Tuscany. You have jazz and jazz. I love old school jazz. Ella Fitzgerald, the jazz standards, you know, all those Cole Porter kind of songs. Olaf doesn't like jazz at all. Because if you follow his channel, you know him a little bit, he likes being challenged and learning new things. So he signed up because he didn't like jazz and he just wanted to learn more about it. But it was a very experimental type of jazz. This sounds very judgmental, but the type where you just make a lot of noise, which I don't really like, and he doesn't either. It's interesting in hindsight to know that we were both there, but we had a really good time. We were a group of 25-ish, 30 people from all different backgrounds, all different ages. So there was retired people, there were young people in our 20s like me and a couple of other girls and a couple of young guys. There were couples, there were singles, there were kids, dogs and pets. And it was just 2 weeks on a hill in Burgundy making music and eating wonderful food and enjoying the view, and it was just magical. So yeah, we met through music really. So Olaf is way more into music than I am. I kind of quit singing because I have some problems with my voice. I've always had them, so singing it takes a lot of effort for me and I don't really enjoy it as much. We did a concert, by the way, about 13 years ago, which was really, really lovely. Olav did all the arrangements of the songs and I was singing.
Ne me quitte pas, il faut oublier tout, peut s'oublier qui s'enfuit déjà.
So Olaf is really thinking of doing more music creative projects when the renovations are finished. We had a music studio in the Netherlands in our house, and all of his instruments are still in the Netherlands in storage. So he's really hoping to bring them here, and yeah, he's done quite amazing things with just writing music and yeah, he's done amazing things actually, like putting poetry to music and stuff like that. So that's, I know, something that he will want to do, and I don't really know. I'll just continue all the very diverse things that I'm doing, which I'm doing for a living. But because the question was something like, what would you really like to do? Well, that's what I'm doing, to be honest. I am doing the things that I really like to do. And then coming back to Olaf, a lot of you have asked what's his background. Is he a carpenter by trade or is he a builder? He's not. I think he's a builder by now with everything that he's learned. He is trained as a mechanical engineer, and before we moved, he worked for a printer manufacturer, and he was in research and development, and then he was the project manager running projects. That's what he did until maybe 2 or 3 years before we moved. And he's always done a lot of DIY with his father. His father taught him a lot. When he starts a new project, for example, when we started building the cabin, he does his research. He's a how do you say, the scientific person. He has a very scientific, logical approach to things, which is completely the opposite of what I do. But so he will do his research, he'll watch 50,000 YouTube videos, he buys the books, he studies it, he thinks about it, he draws a design, he triple checks it, and then he's very methodologic. He's very that he thinks about things, he checks things. He's really very very thorough in his approach, which is why I'm always so confident that when he starts something, that he'll do well, and that it will be, that I don't have anything to worry about it when he makes it. And And he really enjoys doing renovation works. Someone also asked, are you often able to travel to the Netherlands to visit family and friends? And do you see yourselves moving back one day? We have a yearly family meeting, which we travel back to the Netherlands for. I sometimes have things, with friends. So I think in average, I am in the Netherlands a bit more than Olaf, because before, in the first few years that we lived here, I had to go back for my business to meet my colleagues and clients. But now I think maybe it's once, max twice a year. Both of our parents are still very healthy and travel a lot. So Olaf's parents travel to France a lot, and then they always come see us. And my parents will jump on any occasion or excuse they can find to come here. They really love coming here. I think they come at least 6 times a year or something. So, and then our good friends and family come visit us here. So I think when you move to a country that people feel is interesting, they're very interested in coming to see you. We don't really miss the Netherlands, to be honest. I don't feel I want to go back there because I miss it so much. I really only go to see family, or when there is important events in somebody's life that I love, then I go back to the Netherlands to be present at that moment or that event. And the question of, do you see yourself moving back one day, is so interesting, because when we first moved here, I know my parents got that question all the time from people going, so your daughter moved to France. Oh, how interesting. And so how long is she going to stay, and when is she coming back? And my mom was like, I don't know, she's probably not coming back. I don't know if I'm ever going back, to be really honest. We are very much living in the here and now, following what we feel called to do, what we feel excited about. I cannot imagine that I would prefer the Netherlands over France, but I also know that I don't know where I'll be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. There's a fly on the screen. You can't see it. So yeah, we'll do what we've always done and follow guidance. And when we feel we're called to go back to the Netherlands, or that is the best thing to do for all of us and all the people involved, we will. And then I think this is the last question. Yeah, the last question, because this is getting really long, is a question I really liked. And that was, what is your favorite meal? Well, that is impossible to answer. I've written a cookbook that you may know, and I've just gathered a couple of things in there, but I could come up with new ideas every day. I love food. I love eating. I mostly love eating well. It's also important to say. So when you say, what is a favorite meal? That is difficult to say, because it would be so much, but it would always be, I really like very fresh produce. I like simple meals. I only eat in-season produce. I also really enjoy making different kinds of breakfasts and meals for our guests, and just, open my fridge and see what's there and then make something with that. I'm trying to think if there's anything I couldn't live without when it comes to food. I love eggs. I love eggs, and I love my latte macchiato. As you've probably seen, I make them all the time. Voila, I think this is enough for now. I could talk forever. I hope this has given you a better idea of who we are as a family. As you've noticed, my boys are never on YouTube. They're never in the videos. When they were babies, we decided as parents that we were not going to put any images of them online. We're happy that we did that, because when they grew older, they just don't want that. And I think that's a very wise decision in today's world. I'm not telling you what you should do, but I'm very happy that we've never shared any images of our boys online. They are now 16 and almost 14, and that will be their choice. They get to choose when they are ready to have a recognizable online presence, so to speak. So, but we do have 2 lovely boys that are growing to be men. I'm shocked every day when I look at them, like, how do they grow up so fast? Like, where did the time go? And so we really enjoy our life here as a family. I will continue to share our quiet little French life. And I also hope to be able to share more of what you see blurred in the background here, because we're really working very hard to get this kitchen finished. And talking about food, I cannot wait to cook in this kitchen. As always, I really thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. Liking a video, leaving a comment, sharing our channels with your friends. You can't imagine how big the impact of that is on how you support us, because it does mean we make a little more money with these videos, which allows me, you know, to take a couple of days off and drive to a really beautiful home and film that for you and pay for the gas and everything. So thank you so much. I hopefully will be back very soon with updates on this kitchen and our building works. Bye for now.